Every level of success has a door, and every door has a price. The tragedy is not that most people never reach the highest levels of success. The tragedy is that most people don't even realize the level they're trapped in. They wake up, repeat the same patterns, accept the same limits, and call it life. But deep down, there is a quiet voice inside them whispering, "You were meant for more." That whisper is not imagination. It is truth trying to wake you up. And today, that truth is about to get louder than your fear. Success is not one destination. It is not one income number. It is not one lifestyle, one car, one house, or one title. Success is a ladder of becoming, and every rung on that ladder demands a different version of you. The version that survives at one level is not strong enough for the next. And the reason most people feel stuck is not because they lack opportunity. It's because they refuse to evolve. Some people are stuck at the level of survival. Their entire life is about getting through the day, paying the bills, avoiding disaster, chasing relief instead of purpose. They don't plan, they react. They don't build, they cope. They are always tired, always stressed, always one problem away from collapse. And the most dangerous thing about this level is not the struggle, it's that survival feels normal when you've done it long enough. You start to believe that pain is your permanent address, but it isn't. Survival is not your destiny. It is only your starting line. Then there is another level where people escape survival but fall into comfort. They earn enough. They can breathe. They aren't desperate anymore. And because they're no longer desperate, they stop being driven. This level is more dangerous than survival because it feels like success. You can afford distractions. You can afford excuses. You can afford to delay your greatness. You no longer feel the fire that once pushed you forward, and slowly ambition dies under the soft blanket of convenience. Dreams get postponed, goals get downsized, and potential gets buried alive under routine. Then there is a level where people become achievers. They work hard, they chase goals, they want more. They are disciplined when others are distracted, they sacrifice when others settle, and they start to taste results. They grow, they win, they climb. But even this level has a prison if you're not careful, because achievers can become addicted to validation. They start chasing applause instead of alignment. They measure their worth by what they accomplish instead of who they become. And if the applause ever stops, their identity collapses with it. Beyond achievement is a level most never reach, the level of leadership. This is where success stops being about what you gain and starts being about who you lift. This is where your life is no longer just about your comfort, but about your contribution. This is where your scars become someone else's survival guide. And yet this level demands the deepest sacrifice of all, the death of ego, because leaders don't rise to be admired, they rise to serve. And many people say they want influence, but they don't want the responsibility that comes with it. And beyond even leadership is the highest level of success, the level of legacy. This is where your impact outlives your income. This is where your values echo long after your voice is gone. This is where your life becomes a seed planted into generations you may never meet. Legacy is built quietly. It is built in the unseen decisions, the private disciplines, the moments of integrity when no one is watching. And most people never reach this level because it requires something terrifying, living for something bigger than yourself. Now, the hardest question is not what these levels are. The hardest question is this: which one are you stuck in? Because being stuck doesn't always look like failure. Sometimes it looks like comfort. Sometimes it looks like success. Sometimes it looks like applause. But if you are not growing, stretching, becoming, you are stuck, no matter how good it looks on the outside. People say they want the next level, but their habits are loyal to the old one. They pray for growth, but protect comfort. They ask for breakthrough, but refuse discipline. They want the reward without the transformation. But the truth is brutal and beautiful. At the same time, the next level always demands a new you. You cannot enter a new chapter with the same mindset. You cannot climb higher with weights you refuse to drop. You cannot become what you admire while holding on to what destroys you. Every level has a devil. Every season has a test. At survival, the enemy is despair. At comfort, the enemy is apathy. At achievement, the enemy is pride. At leadership, the enemy is ego. At legacy, the enemy is fear of sacrifice. And the question is not whether resistance will come. The question is whether you will rise when it does. People wait for motivation, but motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes. What carries you upward is not motivation. It is obedience to purpose when your feelings are silent. The people who reach the highest levels are not the most gifted. They are the most committed. They don't wait until they feel ready. They decide and then they become. You don't break into new levels by wishing. You break into them by working when no one is watching, by staying disciplined when no one is clapping, by staying faithful when results are slow, by continuing when quitting feels logical. Some of you have been on the edge of the next level for years, not because the door is locked, but because you keep hesitating to knock. You keep waiting for permission. You keep waiting for validation. You keep waiting for certainty. But certainty is not given before the leap. It is revealed after the jump. You will never feel fully prepared to become the person you are meant to be. Growth always feels like risk. Expansion always feels like loss before it feels like gain. Transformation always feels like death before it feels like resurrection. And this is where most people turn back, not because they can't succeed, but because success requires the funeral of their old identity. You cannot keep the old habits and inherit the new future. You cannot keep the same shortcuts and expect sacred outcomes. You cannot whisper your goals and expect thunder in your results. Your struggle is not proof that you are losing. Many times your struggle is proof that you are shedding an old skin that can no longer contain who you are becoming. Pressure is not your enemy. Pressure reveals what is real. Some of you are frustrated right now, not because you're failing, but because you've outgrown the level you're standing on. And what used to work no longer works because it was never meant to sustain the next version of you. Growth is uncomfortable because it demands mourning who you used to be. There is a grief that comes with becoming. You lose familiar patterns, you lose familiar relationships, you lose familiar excuses. But what you gain is a future that finally matches the fire inside your bones. Stop asking, why is this hard? Hard is not. Proof of wrong direction. Often it is confirmation of the right one. You see, every level of success has a language. Survival speaks fear. Comfort speaks distraction. Achievement speaks ambition. Leadership speaks responsibility. Legacy speaks sacrifice. Which language are you fluent in? Many people say they want abundance, but their thoughts are fluent in lack. They say they want elevation, but their actions are loyal to the floor. They say they want purpose, but they spend their time feeding distractions that starve their destiny. What you repeatedly feed will eventually lead. Time does not change people, decisions do. And the most important decision you will ever make is not what you do, it is who you decide to become. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your standards. If your standard is comfort, you will always sabotage discipline. If your standard is applause, you will always fear criticism. If your standard is safety, you will always avoid destiny. But if your standard is growth, you will endure pain. If your standard is truth, you will release the mask. If your standard is purpose, you will outgrow the crowd. And yes, you will be misunderstood when you change levels. Yes, you will be judged when you shed comfort. Yes, you will lose people when you choose purpose. But losing what was holding you down is not loss. It is liberation. Every next level requires you to offend the level beneath it. You cannot ascend without separation. You cannot build a new life while protecting an old identity. You cannot reach higher while clinging lower. And this is why so many people live with regret instead of destiny. They are loyal to versions of themselves that no longer serve their future. You keep asking for the next opportunity, but the real question is this: are you ready for the responsibility that comes with it? Higher LS demand higher discipline. Greater influence demands greater integrity. Bigger vision demands deeper character. Success does not build character, it reveals it. And the level you stay on long enough becomes the level you start to believe defines you. But hear this clearly: where you are is not who you are. You may feel stuck, but you are not stagnant unless you decide to be. You may feel behind, but time bows to those who move with purpose. You may feel unqualified, but calling always outruns credentials. What qualifies you is not your resume. It's your willingness to grow. You didn't come this far to only come this far. There are dreams inside you that have not died. They have only been waiting for your courage to rise again. And courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the decision that your future is louder than your fear. At every level of success, there will be voices. Some will doubt you. Some will distract you. Some will define you by your past. Some will try to keep you small so they feel big. But the most dangerous voice you will ever face is the one that whispers, "Stay where you are. This is enough." Enough is the enemy of becoming. Your spirit was not designed for stagnation. You were built to grow, to stretch, to expand, to break ceilings, to rewrite limits, to become what scares you. If you are not uncomfortable lately, you might be too comfortable with less than you were created for. Some of you are one decision away from a different life. Not 10 years, not a miracle, not perfect timing. One decision to change how you think. One decision to change what you tolerate. One decision to change what you chase. The doors of the next level do not open for the qualified. They open for the committed. The next level is not waiting on your permission. It is waiting on your preparation. And preparation is not glamorous. It's lonely. It's quiet. It's uncelebrated. It's misunderstood. But what you prepare for in silence will announce itself in power. There is a version of you in the future who is silently begging you not to quit today. That version is stronger because of what you survive now. That version is wiser because of what you endure now. That version is free because of what you break free from now. Do not betray your future for the comfort of your present. Every level of success demands a price. Survival demands endurance. Comfort demands vigilance. Achievement demands discipline. Leadership demands humility. Legacy demands sacrifice. And the question is not whether you can pay the price. The question is whether you are willing, because the truth is you are already paying a price. You're either paying the price of growth or the price of regret. And regret is the most expensive currency on earth. So ask yourself honestly, what level am I on? And why am I still here? What am I protecting that is keeping me trapped? What fear, what habit, what distraction, what excuse has become my cage? And more importantly, who must I become to break free? The moment you decide to evolve, your life will resist. The moment you choose purpose, your comfort will protest. The moment you rise, your past will call your name, but do not answer. You are not who you were. You are not who they remember. You are who you are becoming. Let today be the day you stop negotiating with your lower self. Let today be the day you stop shrinking to fit rooms you have outgrown. Let today be the day you stop waiting for permission to live your calling. Because the next level is not ahead of you, it is inside of you, and it has been waiting long enough. Success is not a single destination that you arrive at and remain forever. It is a series of levels that demand new versions of you at every stage. The problem is that most people believe success is one moment, one breakthrough, one achievement that will finally make them feel complete. But in reality, success is a lifelong unfolding. The level that once felt like a miracle eventually becomes your normal, and what once seemed impossible becomes your baseline. A person who once prayed for stability later becomes restless within it. A person who once dreamed of opportunity later becomes burdened by responsibility. This is the nature of growth. The danger is when people stop moving through these levels and start building houses on stages that were meant to be passed through. They mistakenly assume that reaching one level means the journey is over, when in truth it has only shifted form. The hunger that once drove them begins to fade, not because they have arrived, but because they have grown comfortable. The fire that once burned inside them becomes a flicker, because comfort quietly steals ambition without making a sound. Every level of success changes the type of struggle you face. Survival struggles with fear. Stability struggles with stagnation. Achievement struggles with pressure. Influence struggle. Ease with responsibility, and legacy struggles with sacrifice. The tragedy is not that people fall short of the highest levels, but that many never even realize there are higher levels waiting because they mistake their current comfort for fulfillment. Growth always requires tension, and without tension, the soul becomes dull. When a person stops stretching, they slowly start shrinking without even noticing. The mind adjusts to limitation When it is repeated long enough, what once felt like a stepping stone begins to feel like a ceiling. People don't wake up one day and decide to give up on their potential. They simply stop asking for more of themselves. They start measuring success by safety instead of significance. They start valuing peace over purpose. They start choosing predictability over possibility. And slowly, the ladder that once pulled them upward turns into a cage that keeps them standing still. You cannot remain the same person and expect to live in a different future. Each level requires greater awareness, stronger discipline, deeper vision, and a wider capacity to carry pressure. The version of you that survives cannot lead. The version of you that leads cannot hide. The version of you that leaves a legacy cannot live for comfort. Growth is the quiet agreement to outgrow what once felt like home. It is the willingness to be misunderstood today so that you can become undeniable tomorrow. And the most dangerous illusion of all is believing that where you are is where you are meant to stay. Struggle often looks loud and obvious, but comfort is silent and subtle, and that is what makes it so dangerous. When a person escapes survival, they breathe a sigh of relief because the pressure eases and the urgency fades. Bills are paid. The crisis is gone. Stability arrives. And instead of using that stability as a platform for growth, many use it as a place to rest tea, air ambition. They tell themselves they have earned the right to relax, to slow down, to settle into sameness. At first it feels like peace. At first it feels like safety. But over time, comfort turns into a quiet limiter. It doesn't attack like fear does. It doesn't break you like failure does. It simply invites you to stay. It teaches you to delay. It convinces you that tomorrow is always available. Comfort gives you just enough to survive without enough to soar. It feeds your body while starving your purpose. People who are stuck in comfort aren't failing publicly. They are fading privately. They still wake up. They still work. They still function. But something inside them goes silent. The hunger that once made them dangerous disappears. The boldness that once made them take risks is replaced by caution. They start calculating instead of creating. They start protecting instead of building. And the scariest part is that they don't feel stuck because nothing is technically wrong. There is no emergency, no collapse, no disaster that forces change, just a slow drifting into a life that feels safe but empty. Comfort numbs urgency. It dulls desperation. It removes the pressure that once forced growth. And without pressure, people shrink their dreams to match their routines. They stop pursuing big visions and start managing small lives. They stop chasing greatness and start collecting distractions. Busy replaces purposeful. Entertained replaces driven. And they call it balance. But real balance does not kill ambition. Real balance does not bury purpose. Comfort is not rest when it replaces forward motion. It becomes a cage lined with cushions so you don't feel the bars. Many people fail to realize that their greatest enemy is not hardship, but ease. Hardship sharpens. Comfort softens. Hardship forces adaptation. Comfort breeds stagnation. Hardship demands courage. Comfort rewards delay. And by the time a person realizes they have traded forward momentum for stability, years have passed, and the fire that once made them unstoppable now feels like a distant memory they can barely remember how to ignite. Comfort whispers that you have time. Comfort whispers that tomorrow is guaranteed. Comfort whispers that the risk is too high and the reward can wait. And too many people listen, not realizing that every season of comfort that goes unchallenged slowly erodes the edge that once made them dangerous. Transformation does not feel like winning at first. It feels like losing something familiar, something known, something that once made you feel safe. Every new level demands that you release an old version of yourself, and that release is rarely painless. People think elevation is just addition, but the truth is that it is just as much subtraction. You don't just gain new habits, you lose old ones. You don't just gain new confidence, you lose old fears. You don't just gain new vision, you lose old limits. And loss, even necessary loss, still feels like grief to the human heart. That is why so many people resist growth even when they desire success. They want the new future without the funeral of the old identity. They want the new income without the death of the old mindset. They want the new strength without the death of the old excuses. But you cannot carry two seasons at once. You cannot be committed to who you were and still fully become who you are meant to be. Growth requires separation. It demands that you confront the habits that once protected you, but now imprison you. It demands that you let go of the coping mechanisms that once helped you survive, but now sabotage your future. Fear once kept you alert, but now it keeps you small. Procrastination once gave you comfort, but now it steals your destiny. People often mistake resistance as a sign that they are on the wrong path, when in reality resistance is often confirmation that they are finally leaving the familiar. The body resists change, the mind resists uncertainty, the ego resists surrender, but the soul craves expansion. This inner conflict is what makes transformation feel so violent. You are uprooting patterns that have governed your life for years. You are dismantling belief systems that once shaped your decisions. You are challenging identities that once defined your worth. Of course it hurts. Of course it feels unstable. Of course it feels like something inside you is dying because something inside you is. The old version cannot come with you where you are going. The person who once needed approval cannot survive in a life that requires leadership. The person who once hid behind excuses cannot sustain a life of accountability. The person who once lived for comfort cannot lead a life of purpose. And yet people cling to who they used to be because at least it is familiar. Familiar pain feels safer than unfamiliar possibility. People would rather tolerate what is slowly killing them than risk what might bring them fully alive. The hardest part of growth is not building new habits. It is burying old identities without knowing exactly who you will be afterward. That uncertainty terrifies people. They ask who they will become if they are no longer who they were. They fear losing themselves, not realizing that the version they are afraid to lose is the very one that has been holding them back all along. Motivation is emotional energy, and emotions rise and fall like waves, which means anything built on motivation alone will rise and fall with it. People wait until they feel inspired to act, but inspiration is not a dependable engine for transformation. It comes when it wants. It leaves when pressure rises. Discipline, on the other hand, is a deck. Ishon made before emotion has a voice. Discipline is the agreement you make with your higher self and keep even when your lower self protests. It is what keeps you moving when excitement fades, when results slow down, when doubt gets loud, and when comfort calls your name. People often assume that the most successful individuals are the most motivated, but in truth they are often the most tired, the most tested, and the most tempted to quit. What separates them is not how strongly they feel, but how deeply they are committed. Discipline is what carries vision through seasons of dryness. It is what protects purpose when enthusiasm disappears. It does not care whether you feel ready. It does not negotiate with fear. It does not wait for perfect conditions. It moves because it has already decided. Motivation feels powerful in the beginning because it comes with excitement and emotion, but discipline is quiet and steady. It does not shout. It whispers consistency. It builds results so slowly that people underestimate its power until the outcome becomes undeniable. Most people waste years trying to feel ready instead of becoming ready. They wait for confidence to show up before they act, not realizing that confidence is built through action, not before it. They wait for clarity before they move, not realizing that clarity often comes after movement, not before it. Discipline moves without permission from comfort. It does not require applause. It does not require perfect weather or perfect timing. It requires agreement. And once that agreement is made, the work becomes non-negotiable. The mind may rebel, the body may resist, emotions may fluctuate, but discipline stays. It becomes the bridge between intention and reality. The reason so many people stay stuck at the same level for years is not because they lack vision, but because they lack the structure to carry it. They have ideas but no execution, dreams but no systems, goals but no routines. Discipline turns potential into production. It forces the future into the present, one action at a time. It transforms desire into direction and direction into destiny. It is not glamorous, it is repetitive, it is often boring. It demands doing the same things long after the excitement is gone. But what discipline builds slowly, nothing else can destroy quickly. Motivation may light the fire, but discipline is what keeps it burning through storms. There comes a point where success stops being about accumulation and starts being about responsibility. Leadership is the moment when your life is no longer just about what you gain, but about what you carry for others. At this level, talent is no longer enough because people begin watching not just what you do, but who you are. Every weakness is multiplied by influence. Every flaw is magnified by visibility. Leadership exposes the cracks that success could previously hide. It demands emotional control, moral strength, and the ability to stand firm when applause fades and criticism rises. Many people desire influence without understanding the weight that comes with it. They want the platform, but not the pressure. They want the title, but not the discipline. They want to be followed, but not to be accountable. True leadership is lonely because decisions often upset people. It requires saying no when it is unpopular and standing for what is right when it is costly. And when leadership matures beyond influence, it becomes legacy. Legacy is built when a person stops living for only their own lifetime and starts planting seeds they may never see fully grow. It is the shift from short-term reward to long-term impact, from immediate results to generational change, from visible success to invisible investment. Legacy demands patience because the most important work often has no instant feedback. It demands humility because credit may never return to you. It demands faith because you build for a future you may never personally benefit from. People who chase legacy think differently about time, decisions, money, and relationships. They move with purpose instead of impulse. They choose values over convenience. They invest in people rather than just projects. They understand that influence fades, but impact multiplies. At the legacy level, ego becomes the greatest threat because the desire for recognition can easily divert the mission. A person can build something powerful and still destroy its future by inserting themselves at the center instead of the purpose. Legacy requires releasing control so that others can rise. It requires trusting that what you started can survive beyond you. It is the ultimate expression of leadership because it demands that your name become less important than your contribution. At this level, success is no longer measured by what you own, but by what you leave behind in the hearts, minds, and lives of others who continue the work long after you are gone. Every choice extracts a cost, whether you notice it or not. People often believe that avoiding growth is the safer option, but in reality, it only delays payment while increasing the interest. Effort costs something, discipline costs something, sacrifice costs something, but regret charges the highest price of all because it never stops collecting. The pain of growth is temporary, but the pain of regret is a slow, lifelong erosion of the soul. When people avoid discomfort today, they often inherit dissatisfaction tomorrow. When they avoid risk now, they inherit limitation later. When they refuse to stretch in the present, they begin to shrink in the future. No one stands still in life. You are either moving forward into expansion or drifting backward into decay. The cost of growth is visible. It shows up in early mornings, in lonely seasons, in misunderstood decisions, in delayed gratification. It requires saying no to what feels good now so that you can say yes to what truly matters later. The cost of regret is often invisible at first. It shows up quietly in envy when you see others living the life you once dreamed about. It shows up in excuses that sound practical but are rooted in fear. It shows up in the weight of unrealized potential that presses on your chest late at night when the distractions fade. People underestimate regret because it does not attack immediately. It waits, it accumulates, it compounds, and one day it becomes heavy enough that even success cannot silence it. The tragedy is not failure, because failure still means you tried. The tragedy is never stepping forward at all because you were afraid of what it would cost. Growth will always demand something from you. It will demand time from distractions. It will demand energy from comfort. It will demand courage from fear. But in return, it gives you alignment, confidence, capacity, and purpose. Regret takes everything and gives nothing back. It takes your peace by whispering what could have been. It takes your joy by comparing you to the life you never lived. It takes your confidence by replaying missed chances until doubt becomes identity. You will pay one way or another. You will either invest in your future with discomfort now, or you will finance your past with sorrow later. And the most dangerous belief of all is thinking you can avoid the price entirely.